Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Insurance Experts. It's my pleasure to have on the line Yaakov Berman. He's an insurance expert in the Jewish community out in New Jersey. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
So, how did you get into the insurance business? Let's start off with there.
Okay, sure. From the time I had small children, I was started thinking about their future, and I realized that there's a lot of expenses, and obviously they need the protection, and we need to find a way to find a solution how we could start preparing for what's going to eventually happen. So I explored different strategies, and I realized that I could use what I learned to help others as well.
Oh, very cool. And how long ago did you kind of get into the business?
Just over 4 years ago.
Okay. So, you've obviously worked with a lot of clients over that time span and life insurance in particular. What are the differences between, the Jewish community in terms of life insurance and other communities that you've experienced working with?
And in the Jewish community, typically families are much larger. I mean, I myself have 6 children, and that's not necessarily big in my community. So people understand the need. If someone does pass with a house of small children, I mean, obviously the need is tremendous, and people see that. So as far as the need goes, I think it's very well understood.
Yeah, interesting. For life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, the number one reason people are getting that protection is to protect their family. And obviously, if you live in a community with larger families, that need tends to grow. So are you finding that the penetration rates in terms of people who are buying insurance is higher, or what is your experience with that?
I'm not necessarily sure if there's a higher percentage of people who are covered, but I think the conversation is different. I think that I don't really have to explain what the need is. I think people understand what the need is, and whatever objections they may or may not have, you know,
Mhm.
are typically the same.
Yeah, right. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what happens in your community if people don't get insurance.
And so what happens is that immediately the community mobilizes. They set up a slew of parlor meetings, and they depending on the size of the family, they're usually looking to raise between $1 million and $2 million. And what will go on is that during the Shiva period, which is the 7 day period of mourning after the person passes, they will have they the goal is really to have all the money at least pledged by then.
Interesting. So if you don't have insurance, the community kind of comes together, as you mentioned, during that 7 day sitting Shiva period in the Jewish custom, and they actually come up almost like crowdsourcing with some funding to help that family out anyway.
Yeah, that's correct. But the difference is that with life insurance, the money is yours. The family gets a check; they use it as they see fit. When it's a fund that raises the money, so it's given out at the fund's discretion. So
Hmm. Do you find that people who understand that process, that they say one of the objections is not to buy insurance because they rely on the community, or is that not something that comes up as much?
it usually doesn't come up. It's usually people are not saying that I'm not going to get insurance because the community will take care of me. It might be people might think in the back of their mind, but that's not usually an objection I hear.
Interesting. Yeah, it's because people just don't want to rely on others. They'd rather be self-reliant, especially if they have the funds to protect themselves in advance, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about a client you worked with in your community. You had an interesting story. Tell us a little bit about the client and why they were looking for insurance in the first place.
Okay, so this is a client who I actually reached out to with a cold call. And he did mention to me when I reached out to him that he had insurance. I know enough to know that that's not a reason not to see someone. So I took the meeting and I went in there, and he had taken out the policy a while back. His needs totally changed. He was making a lot more money. His family probably grew somewhat, and he needed a lot more insurance. Um, so I presented to him. Obviously, there's two types of insurance. There's the term insurance, and there's the whole life. And term is just protection coverage, whereas whole life is permanent and it's a savings component to it also. So in the larger discussion, we discussed his goals and his needs. What his family was. He had 3 young boys, so he was still going to be making bar mitzvahs and weddings for them, and as
Mhm.
well as he was interested in putting away money for retirement. Um, so we discussed where the funding for this would come from, and he mentioned that it would probably be easier if it was funded through annual bonuses, which he gets, which he said varied between $50,000, $70,000 a year, which he said he couldn't commit all of it. So I asked him for, what do you feel absolutely comfortable permitting? I know you might get your bonus and you might want to say that she wants to redo the kitchen, she wants to go on vacation, she wants to take time off of work. What do you feel absolutely comfortable with? So he threw out a number. And by the next meeting, I put together with him different illustrations, different possibilities, that, but all I was able to offer him his full need in permanent insurance, and was able to show him that if he needed to fund these goals, these bar mitzvahs and weddings, and a significant retirement income, he could do that all through that policy.
Very interesting. And so you used a budget approach, which I really like, getting somebody comfortable with what they're spending on their plan, what they can afford to pay over time. And then your job, of course, is to stretch that budget as far as possible. And it sounds like the permanent vehicle with the saving component to it was a better fit than the term component, correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time to share this story with us today. Hope to have you on future episodes. And
Okay.
I think it's so fascinating, working in different communities, but the insurance needs have a lot of similarities regardless of what community you're in, right?
But if you have a family and your family needs your income, then we should be protecting that.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Yaakov.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Nice talking.